Good evening, class, and welcome to Binary Gamer. I'm your host, Tony Spears, and this is the show where passionate people talk passionately about the thing that we are passionate about, and that thing is video games. So let's get all the business out of the way up front. Binary Gamer is a podcast you can find all the places you listen to podcasts, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Podcast. If you can find a podcast on it, you can listen to Binary Gamer. You can also head over to YouTube, check us out over there, and of course, find us live every Sunday, or until I decide to change the schedule, but for now, things are looking good here. Find us live over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Binary Gamers. Well, /binary_gamer, because, yeah, I have to have a space. There's a grammar Nazi in me that won't let that go. And finally, you can find me over on Twitter at @IFlipItTheSwitch. And just follow what I do over there. I mostly tweet about video games, a lot of stuff about the FGC, some day-to-day stuff, which mostly ties back to my Instagram. But I don't feel like plugging Instagram. Not right now. But with that out of the way, let's get into the week that was. So this last week, I actually got to play quite a bit of games, and it was pretty freaking awesome. So got back into some Rainbow Six Siege, getting myself back and worked up into like a semi-competitive state. By competitive, I mean like I hold my own in casuals pretty well. Not exactly going to be going to the major anytime soon, but you know, we're getting there slowly yet surely. Aside from that, been playing some Dragonball FighterZ, which we're going to talk more about that later. The thing that I've come to realize with that game is, as much as I love it, I had to put so much work in. I am good. Like, I am just above low tier. No, what's the word? I'm just above bottom tier. That's the best way to put it. It's not great. I do still have fun with it though, but like going online, man, I'm just getting handled by people left and right, and it hurts my soul. But I keep plugging away at it for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm going to keep that up. And then playing some other stuff off and on here and there. I've been playing Smash, mostly with my kids. Still having a lot of fun with that game. That is the game that keeps on giving. Because as much as I love to play it, it's also really fun that my kids just have a game that they'll just go and play. And that's it. They're just playing and they're having a good time. So I am happy about that. And that's really been it. Like small stuff here and there, a couple runs in Dead Cells, things like that. A lot of games, nothing really new. Not yet anyway. There hasn't really been anything to come out lately that has like piqued my interest. Mostly just been sticking with the stuff that I've been playing. And I don't think that's really necessarily a bad thing, but I do want to start getting serious about Street Fighter. Like real serious. Right now I've just been playing some scrub games in Street Fighter 4, but I think I'm going to take the plunge and I'm going to hop into Street Fighter 5 and see what happens. But we'll have to see. So, besides all that, just, you know, been living life. Things have been crazy at work. You know how it is. You have a job. probably. Maybe not. In which case, I envy you. So let's get into some news. So before we get into the actual topic at hand, I want to talk about some stuff that wrapped up literally a couple hours ago. So the Dragon Ball FighterZ World Tour Finals went down today. And man, oh man, that was a ride. That was a lot of fun to watch. So basically the way the whole thing ended out, they did the last chance qualifiers yesterday. And a lot of people came out. There's a lot of really good matches, but came down to top 8. And I'm not going to go through the entire top 8 lineup, but let's just say that Sonic Fox was there, Goichi was there, along with a couple other very notable and famous players from Japan, and neither of them won. Sonic Fox got knocked down into the losers bracket, I think top 6, and then Goichi was cruising along for a while there, then it ended up going down into losers bracket. Sonic Fox lost out, then Goichi lost out, so then everybody's like, well, who is this going to? Come to find out, it's Kazunoku. Came down, Kazunoku went and just laid the hands on his opponent and brought home the sickest trophy I've ever seen. The one that they give out at the end of the Capcom Pro Tour is really nice. It's a piece of like crystal, like the size of a dinner plate, in this very, noticeable shape. Well, it's a very distinct shape, sorry. And, it's got the base and everything, and it's got Ryu doing the Shoryuken and stuff. It's really rad. But this Dragon Ball FighterZ World Tour Final trophy was literally a trophy with Shenron wrapping around it, and there's a Dragon Ball inside of it. I cannot think of anything I would display more proudly, and maybe that says something about me. I don't know, but man, it was the most gangster trophy. Let's just say that the representative from Toei that was giving it to Kazunoku at the end was not wanting to give it up. Like she kept having like one hand on it the entire time, and he's like, I kind of want my trophy now, and she's just like grabbing, like holding on for dear life. It was pretty funny, but he came out, was obviously the better player, and it was a lot of fun. So one thing that was really cool that came out of it that I was really happy about was the announcements that came out. So they announced for season 2 Jiren, Videl, which a lot of people were like, Videl, what? Like everybody wanted, Hercule or Mr. Satan, if you will. And while that would have been really cool, I think it's funny because Videl, like all of her specials, all of her supers and stuff, are Great Saiyan Man coming out and like doing a Kamehameha or like doing, like a beam rush or something like that. And I think that's hilarious. So on top of that, we have Dragon Ball Super Broly from the new Dragon Ball Super movie that literally just came out. So I think that's going to be really rad because that's a completely different Broly than the one that's currently in the game. And then probably the one that has me the most hype, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. And man, does he look, he looks really gangster in the movie. He looks really, really gangster in the game. So I am looking forward to that. They had the voice actors of Vegeta and Goku come out. They were there at the event and stuff like that, and they did some announcements. They had a really good time, but they announced another game coming out just called Dragon Ball Game Project Z. It's the worst working title I've ever heard in a game, and this is coming from a guy who watched the announcement for Octopath Traveler and was like, that can't be the real name, and then they kept the name, and I was like, what the crap. But yeah, somehow Toei topped them on worst project name ever, and this game is coming out, and it's essentially going to be a Dragon Ball Z RPG that I guess is going to start from the beginning of the Saiyan saga and work its way all the way through to what I imagine is the end of Z. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's going to be really cool. It looks amazing. It looks like you're playing, well, I shouldn't say playing the anime because it's not that type of graphics, but like it looks like it reminds me of the same graphical styles like Jump Force, but it's all DBZ and it looks really rad. I am very much looking forward to seeing that. It is going to be rad. I cannot wait. Now, aside from the Dragon Ball FighterZ Grand Final, which was awesome to watch, last bit of FGC news that I want to talk about before I get into the actual topic of the show today is the Mortal Kombat 11 announcement, which a lot of people are like, oh man, that's super cool. Ronda Rousey is going to be the face of Sonya Blade. And I'm like, that's not really what you should be worried about. You should be worried about the fact that Terry Crews is coming out as Jax. I'm just kidding. That is really cool though. But no, I think it looks cool because from everything that I've seen, well, everything that, anybody that's actually looking into it has seen, it looks like they have a lot of mechanics in there that are like a result of like lessons learned from like a combination of MK10 and Injustice 2. It's not that like it's radically different from the two. It's that it looks like they figured out what gives Street Fighter like not Street Fighter, what gives Mortal Kombat its like jank, and just kind of like polish some of those rough edges off, which I think is good. Like when it comes to a lot of like the core fighting games that people think of, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Soul Calibur, when the people think of those core games, they often think of like the way the characters move. Street Fighter, the characters move very deliberately. In like Tekken or in Soul Calibur, you have the third dimension to worry about, but they move rather smoothly, whereas the NetherRealm fighting system has always been like you're not really doing a whole lot of combos, you're not mixing people up, you're getting in hits, and those hits will do like ridiculous amounts of damage and stuff, but everything's like almost too snappy, like inhumanly snappy in a lot of ways. And that it became very apparent in like Mortal Kombat 3 and was like better or worse throughout the series. And MK10 was really good in that they were like, hey, we need to make sure that we polish some of the edges here, and it was good, but at the end of the day it still looked like Mortal Kombat to everybody. This looks like a very different game, and I think that's good. And a lot of people are talking about, oh, this is going to be like some real competition to take down Street Fighter or to take down Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I'm like, you're looking at a different crowd. Now that crowd is real hyped, super hyped in fact, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy that there's people that are excited for a new Mortal Kombat game, but is this thing going to take down Street Fighter 5? Probably not, man. Like, I don't want to sound like that dude. I don't want to sound like the fanboy, but when it comes down to it, when you talk fighting games, it like the place that everybody starts from is Street Fighter. Will probably always be Street Fighter, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being second place to the greatest fighting game in the world. I'm just saying, like, that still makes you one of the greatest fighting games in the world. So now that all that FGC talk, let's get into the actual topic of the show. And this is something I wanted to talk about last week, but things kind of veered off. And like I said, I had gotten onto the subject of my kids and everything when it came to gaming, but I am finally back to center now. And we can actually get into what I want to talk about, which is like literature that is important to games. And not just important in the, like, this is seminal stuff, you must go out and read this, but stuff that I've read, that I've had recommendations to read, and that I've read really good reviews on, and why I think they're important, or why I think they're just fun, or they're really cool. Because like when we were kids, when I'm a 33-year-old man, when I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of this stuff. You'd find, like, I remember going to the library and thinking it was so cool that they had the Super Mario World graphic novel in the library. I thought that was amazing. I was like, what? There's something about video games here that isn't just like one of the player guides or a copy of Nintendo Power they have in the magazine rack. No, like it was flat out just like essentially a manga of Super Mario World, and it was cool. And you go through time, and that stuff starts to crop up more and more and more. And now we live in a world where the people that were like me, grew up playing games and love video games and love these characters and love the worlds that they're set in and everything, are at the age where it's like, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to talk about these games and it's going to be rad. And that's where we start off with the first series of books that I want to talk about, which is the Bossfight books, series of books. So this is an entire series. Currently they're up to 17, I think. 17. So Bossfight Books, for those that don't know, they're a publishing company, and they started up in 2013. And essentially what they do is they get a writer that is either very passionate about or very familiar with the game in question, and they go through and they write a book. Now, unfortunately, the only one that I've actually read myself is the one on Earthbound, which was written by Ken Bauman. Now, mind you, that book was awesome, but it wasn't so much a historical reference about like, oh, Earthbound came out on this day and was made by these people, so much as it was like a story of his life at the time he was playing Earthbound and how Earthbound impacted that, and the things that he took from the game and the things he remembered about the game, the things that stuck with him. And I think that's really cool. Now, they're not all that way. For example, the one on Spelunky is literally written by Derek Yu, the dude who made Spelunky. And it's very much a story of like, you know, while I was making the game, you know, this is what was going on in my life, and these were the ideas I had and different inspirations and stuff. And it's really cool because it turns into a very, you know, behind the scenes look, very much like peeling back the layers of, hey, here's these games that you love, everything from, they have Earthbound, Spelunky, Super Mario Bros. 3, Final Fantasy 5, which I thought that was a really weird one to pick. Not that it would automatically go to 7, but most people would pick 6. That's just me. What is it? Like Metroid. There's so many. Like I said, there's 17 books, and they're all really, really cool. And so, there's some notable authors and other people that you've probably never heard of, but at the same time, it's really cool. And nobody knew who the hell John Steinbeck was until he wrote his first book. So, I mean, this is a really good intro to put out there for people. So now that this series of books has come out, I'm really interested to, well, one, I want to get the rest of them. I only own the one Earthbound book, but I want to get the rest because they're all really cool. But at the same time, I'm like, well, you know, I don't know if I have everything that I need in order to make that happen, because let's be real, that's a lot of books. I'm over here now. Look how many books that is. That's a lot. So yeah, you have World of Warcraft, Spelunky, Metal Gear Solid, which I really want to read that one. And the covers are really funny because like the Spelunky one is a eggplant. The Earthbound one is a baseball bat. The Chrono Trigger one, I think, is a porcupine, which is supposed to look like Lavos, which I thought was hilarious. The Metal Gear Solid one is just a cardboard box. You know what I mean? It's really cool. But this series of books is great. I definitely suggest going to the website. It's just bossfightbooks.com, and you can go there and you can order one at a time. I think they're like $5 or $6 a piece, or no, I think they're like $12 a piece. It's about the same price as a Kindle book. You know what I mean? As an ebook. But I would definitely suggest picking it up because, you know, like there's a whole list of them. There are a lot of really great games in here. Some games you may have never played, and it's really cool to get that look. So moving on from there, we can go into one that's gotten a lot more press lately, which is Console Wars. So I'm actually currently in the midst of reading this. I've been bouncing back and forth between this and the Fighting Game Player's Primer, or as it's actually known, From Masher to Master. I've been bouncing back between the two. This is a really cool game, cool book about video games, and is really kind of the story of how Sega was trying to compete with Nintendo at a time when Nintendo was smashing it. And Sega was kind of unsure in its footing because Sega hadn't tried to cross over into the States yet in a big way, and just the trials and tribulations that go on there. It's been said that it is very much a one-sided story, in that Sega's kind of played out to be the scrappy underdog, and they're out there and it's like, yeah, man, we're gonna go make great games, guys. And Nintendo's just over here being all like, we're Nintendo and we just want to get money, like it's very biased in that way in some parts, but it's also very good. I think the fact that they're gonna be making a movie based on it is actually really cool. Oh, it is also, just so I don't not give anybody their due, Console Wars was written by Blake J. Harris. Really, really cool book. I definitely suggest going and checking it out. It's really cool to see these like historical look backs on like certain periods in games, not just games themselves, but like the companies and the people involved, like the things that were moving and shaking, and how it affected, video games as we know it. Because while it may be kind of overhyped in a way, if you think about it, what happens in this book, like the actual console wars, if you will, shaped what video games became. And I think that's really important. One of the like key, like what's the word, like mission statements of Binary Gamer, of what I'm here to do, is to help us like learn and appreciate not just the games we have now or the games that came before, but like the events and the people that came before, and the people that took the strides to do better with games, and the people that took the time out of their lives to make the games and to to cherish the games that we love. And I think that this book helps in that endeavor. So moving on from there, we're gonna go to this one here, Super Mario: How Nintendo Conquered America by Jeff Ryan. So this is actually the very first Audible book that I ever got, because I got my Audible subscription and it suggested it to me because Amazon knows what I like. And I listened to this whole thing. I've actually listened to it twice, and I just recently re-downloaded it when I renewed my Kindle subscription because I needed to get a hold of the book to do this episode. And I got a couple other books too and stuff, but I'm gonna listen to this again, and it's amazing. It's kind of the flip side, if you will, of Console Wars, but like set earlier. Whereas Console Wars takes place like the tail end of the NES going into the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom. This is very much like Nintendo is trying to get their foothold in the United States. How do we do that? Okay, we're going to go and just put out Donkey Kong in every single bar and laundromat that we can. And it worked. Like they got there, and here we are today. This is a really, really, I'm not saying you have to go out and get the audiobook. I thought the narration in the audiobook was done really well. If you want to get it physical, that's fine. It's still a really good book and tells a really cool story. Also, cements a lot of stuff and explains a lot of stuff too, because oddly enough, like one of the things that I thought was hilarious was I had like an aha moment. I will never forget this. I was listening to the audiobook in my earbuds while I was doing the dishes, and I'm listening, and they started talking about Mode 7. Now, I had heard of Mode 7 in passing, like in podcasts and read at different places, but never had it explained to me. I just knew that the Super Nintendo was really cool because of Mode 7. I didn't know what that was. So then they go through and they explain Mode 7 and about how it's basically the entire system that, Super Mario Kart is built around, and how it's implemented in games like Castlevania 4, F-Zero, a lot of other games. And like my mind exploded, because like then I realized, like, oh my god, this is what they've been talking about this entire time. Like my whole life has been a lie, and I just didn't know. But it was awesome to like learn that, and then you learn a bunch of other stuff too. And it's really cool about how like they swapped out a whole bunch of I think it was like sub commander games where like you're playing like the commander of a submarine and stuff, and those weren't really selling. Like people just weren't going to the arcade to play it, and so they got all those machines and they went to each of those locations and they swapped out the boards for Donkey Kong, and then Donkey Kong went and killed it. So again, really cool. Definitely suggest the book. You should go and read it. So moving on from there, we're going to go to the game console, and this one is really cool. This is one I actually plan on picking up very soon, because this thing is amazing. If you have not seen this, it's really awesome. It's called The Game Console: A Photographic History from Atari to Xbox. And the reason why this is cool is because it not only explains like the physicality of the consoles itself, like I said, from Atari to Xbox, so all these different consoles and like everything in between. The ColecoVision's in here, the Nintendo, the Sony PlayStation, the OG Xbox, so you can find out what the inside of that VCR looked like. Yeah, like they're all here. And what's cool is they do these like blown up representations, and they show you the boards and all the hardware, and like what kind of what kind of disk drive was this thing using, what kind of hard drive did it have inside of it, like what was the voltage going through this thing, like did I accidentally blow up my Xbox in Iraq? Nope, I'm just an idiot and it didn't have an internal switch, but what do you know. Like there's all this really cool information, and then it doesn't tell you about about Sony or about Nintendo or about Microsoft. It tells you about like the production and manufacturing and the like specifics of all of these consoles. And it's, again, super duper cool. I love this kind of stuff. I love seeing like the breakdown and like how it's made. Like how it's made is one of my favorite TV shows ever. I didn't think learning how to make a chisel could be fascinating. Come to find out it is. But stuff like that is really cool to me because I love seeing like this is the raw components, the raw materials to this process. Now here's what comes out at the end. Let's show you everything in between. And it's really, really cool. And they do that for the game consoles, and it's really neat. I've had it recommended to me by so many friends, and I think I'm going to end up picking it up. It's only $30 on Amazon. I would say you can get it on Kindle, but this is very much a coffee table book. You like leave out, and when people come over and they're like, this is really cool. I used to have a Nintendo. And they sit down and they flip through it and they're like, man, did you know there are like parts inside these things? Like, yeah, dude, read the book. It's great. But yes, go and get the game console. So finally, well, not the final one, but the one I've been probably reading the most lately, From Masher to Master, the Educated Video Game Enthusiast Fighting Game Primer. Let me tell you, I was not so certain that I was playing Street Fighter wrong, or fighting games in general wrong, until I started reading this. My God. I always knew that there was like a sweet science to fighting games the same way there is with like real boxing or MMA or anything else, you know what I mean? And I knew that, there's a method to the madness, but man, I have never seen anything in my entire life that breaks that process down, something that could really be impenetrable to a lot of people, and break it down to such an understandable language. It's awesome. Like so many well put analogies for this thing, and then also explaining a lot of nuance in video games, like startup frames, damage frames, recovery frames. What frame advantage is. I know I just said a lot of frames in there, but that's a big deal when it comes to these fighting games. Like what the neutral game is, explaining footsies, things like that. It breaks all this stuff down. But the other great thing about it is that they give you homework. They're like, hey, before you read any further, go into practice mode and try out these two mix-ups and do it until you can do it without thinking. And before that, it's like, I want you to launch 20 fireballs from one side and 20 fireballs from another. And then I want you to go and do, 10 dragon punches on this side and 10 dragon punches on the other. Like, they go like full Mr. Miyagi on you. And it's like wax on, wax off, man. And it's really, really cool. I don't think I'm going to be a Street Fighter, gaming god by the time I get done reading this thing, but I think I'll have not only a better understanding, but a better appreciation for fighting games, and the people that play them. Like, I love the FGC as things are now. I love watching like fighting game tournaments, like, which is obvious from the beginning of this episode. I spent the entire day watching the Dragon Ball Z World Finals, but at the same time, like having a better understanding of it helps you to appreciate it more. It's like any other sport. It's like football, baseball, whatever. Like you can sit there and watch baseball and have a courtesy understanding of it and like it. But if you really understand the game, understand the players, understand the way that the game is played, you can love it even more. And I think that's really cool. So finally now, the big mamas. The behemoths, if you will. Bah, my head. But yeah, so I only own 2 of these, and they're really rad. So you have the Hyrule Historia, the Arts and Artifacts, and then the Encyclopedia for The Legend of Zelda. And this is strictly lore, just lore based. And it's awesome. It is probably the Hyrule story is one of my favorite books. Like, period. Hands down. Cannot be denied there. The arts and artifacts, man, I did not think I could love the world of Legend of Zelda more until my brilliant wife got me that for a birthday gift. And I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. Actually, sorry, anniversary gift. And I sat down, just poured over it, and was just in awe at just how deep the rabbit hole can really go when it comes to the lore and the worlds that, of the games that we love. And the encyclopedia I do want to get. I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but it does look really, really cool. And it breaks a lot of things down. It really does do like the deep dive stuff for all these, for not just the games, but like characters, locations, items and stuff. Explains to you like who built the freaking, like who made the boomerang from Link to the Past. Well, you'll find out in the Legend of Zelda encyclopedia. And it's really cool. Now, there are a ton of other books out there that do lore for other games, whether it be, Warcraft or the Blizzard universe in general, for that matter. Different fighting games. Halo. There's an entire series of books on Halo that expand lore in the universe, different characters and stuff, and they're awesome. They're all amazing. But I think if you're just looking for like best bang for your buck for a franchise that is undoubtedly one of the best, these three for The Legend of Zelda, it's hard to argue those facts, man. And what I wanted to put out for like the last bit of this particular episode and for this particular topic is playing games is great. We all love playing games. We love playing video games. If you're listening to this podcast, that's probably one of the reasons why you're here, because you love to play video games. But also, having a better understanding and like doing the research and stuff for these games is good too. And it helps you to appreciate them more, helps you to love playing them more. I mean, if you look at it, so much lore for League of Legends is just told in music videos, literally music videos. But if you go through and you watch a bunch of them, or hell, all of them if you have the time, you can learn so much about that universe. And the same applies to any game that you like or any game that you love. You can really go and do the research and find things to read, things to watch that aren't just playing the games. I'm not saying we need to stop playing games. I'm saying that on top of the due diligence of going out and, whooping butt in Monster Hunter, or, laying the smackdown in some Street Fighter, saving the princess in Legend of Zelda, or just playing some freaking Super Mario Brothers with your kids, you can also go and learn more about those games if you love them enough. And that's really it. That's what this episode is about. There are a lot of really good books out there about video games, and I think you should go read them, because I'm going to do my damnedest to read as many as I can. Now, obviously, it's not like a comprehensive list. I have not covered every book about video games ever written, because a lot of them are kind of rehashes on other games and stuff, or like rehashes of other people's books. I literally saw a review on Amazon for a book that I will not mention that essentially said that like 90% of that book was ripped from another book. And that sucks, but at the end of the day, if you're not putting in your own views on this stuff and you're not coming up with something original, I mean, these games are static elements. Like, historically, there's not going to be much to go off of that's new or different. But that is it for this week. I know it's kind of a weird short episode, but I really got through what I wanted to say and talked about the books I wanted to talk about and why they're awesome. And I'm not going to drag you down any further, kids. It's just not how I roll. But that is going to do it for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Remember, Binary Gamer is a podcast you can find in all the places that you find your podcasts, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Podcasts, Player FM, doesn't matter. If you can listen to podcasts there, you can find Binary Gamer. You can also head over to Twitch, twitch.tv/binary_gamer, and check us out live every Sunday. The VOD being there for a couple days afterward. And if you want to watch us live, but you can't, you want to watch the video, but you can't be there live, that's fine. We're over there on YouTube as well. Head to YouTube, search Binary Gamers with an S, I know. And you can see all the awesome stuff we do over there. And finally, you can find me over on Twitter at iFlipTheSwitch, Twitter handle in the podcast description. And yeah, just follow me over there. We can have a conversation about video games, and it'll be awesome. So, again, that is going to do it for this week. Thank you very much for watching / listening. Have an awesome week. Go play some games, kids. Class dismissed.